On behalf of the entire team here at ABC Action News, thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about our Taking Action Against Domestic Violence campaign. In the fall of 2008, we looked at different community issues that we could build an awareness campaign around. We discovered that domestic violence was, and still is, a significant problem here in the Tampa Bay area. We have more reported cases of abuse than the state average. And across the country, 1 in every 4 women will face this abuse in their lifetime. It's a tough issue and unfortunately occupies too much of our news time with attacks and murders. But we felt that we could make a difference with a laser-focused awareness campaign. For 6 weeks every year, we focus very deliberately on local resources, survivors telling their stories, and the statewide domestic violence hotline. Our mission? Always the same: educating viewers on the danger signs of abuse, raising awareness of local shelters and programs, and inspiring victims to break the cycle of abuse. The centerpiece of the campaign is our primetime special.
Domestic violence can affect anyone. 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime.
Expecting someone to believe that something like this could happen to them is unrealistic, because I myself never thought that it would happen to me.
You just think, what can I do to make it stop hurting?
It's not your fault. You're not to blame.
Chances are you or someone you know may be suffering in silence. There is a way out.
Our 1-hour special includes local survivors, the advocates, and the programs that help these women go from victims to survivors. And we show viewers the proof that domestic violence is cutting across all social and economic levels in our neighborhoods.
I'm gonna say, look, this is how it is.
Natalie Baird, attorney at law, successful, tough, and fiercely independent. Known for her straight talk, clients come back time and time again for Natalie's unique brand of lawyering. Her specialty, domestic violence cases.
The average amount of times that you go back are 7 times. So if you go back 7 times, it's okay. Hopefully you won't be killed during that time, but I guarantee you, if you don't get out eventually, he will kill you or disfigure you.
The excuses for staying, she's heard them all. But more importantly, she's lived them all. The strong and confident woman of today, a stark contrast to the victim of 12 years ago.
12 years ago, I was broken. I probably weighed maybe 100 pounds.
Then in her 20s, a biology major at the University of South Florida, it should have been the time of her life. Instead, the college student was living in fear, stalked by an ex-boyfriend. Over the course of a year, he beat, raped, and choked her repeatedly.
He had taken my head, put it down in the floorboard of the truck, and we had stopped at a stop sign, and I just ran out and started screaming for help. There was a gate. I had grabbed onto the gate. He had karate chopped my arm to get me off the gate, and then just dragged me back into the vehicle, basically picked me up like a rag doll and threw me back in.
He dragged you back to the car?
And I'll never forget, because I couldn't believe it was happening to me. I'm like, this is not happening. This is a bad dream.
That fight would end with a broken arm and a trip to the hospital. These photos taken after she lied to doctors, ashamed, telling them she'd fallen rollerblading. Natalie would survive that attack, only to be nearly strangled to death in another fight.
I had these strangulation marks, bruises. They were red on my neck. And I was like, maybe I should just go get a knife out of the kitchen drawer and just take my life, because I'm never going to be able to get away from this man. He's going to kill me, but I'd rather just go the way that I want to go.
Sitting in the family room of her home more than a decade later, that moment in time still hurts her deeply.
And these tears are only because it's very difficult for me personally to believe that that was the person I was.
Like most people trapped in abusive relationships, Natalie had refused to even accept that she was a victim of domestic abuse. It was a situation, she thought, something she could handle. It wasn't until she finally admitted to herself that she was a victim and reached out for help that life began to change.
Corey knows this. I'll never be completely, you'll never forget it. But the fear and having almost your life just spiral and all of those things.
After years of counseling and court injunctions against her abuser, Natalie is happily married and running a law firm with her husband Corey, a force to be reckoned with.
I can sit there with a client and I can say, look, or a victim that calls, look, I know what that feels like.
Armed with the law and her memories, Natalie is now helping victims take the first steps to freedom, starting with the exit plan.
And I also packed a bag. I packed toiletries, a few items of makeup, clothes, and I hid the bag in a closet.
Were there days when you thought, I think he knows?
Yeah, every day I thought that.
It's a story Natalie shares with anyone who will listen, turning victims to victors one day at a time.
Come here, Barb. At the end of the day, I go home I'm sitting there with my puppies and I say, you know, Mommy did something good today.
We also produce stories that air in our newscast, and we produce hard-hitting public service announcements that get noticed. Here's an example. The victim you're about to meet was set on fire by her husband.
He became enraged, jealous, and obsessed, and manipulative. He, at one point had the knife to my throat. He struck me in the head with a hammer, tossed gasoline on me, threw it at me as if he was throwing me the remote, and I began to pray for God to just let me live.
That was one of several PSAs that we produced for our campaign sponsor, Sykes Enterprises, a global company with headquarters right here in Tampa. In an interview with me on Positively Tampa Bay, its president and CEO explained why the campaign is so important to his company.
It was the statistics, I think, that really hit me. The number 1 in 4 women in particular that will suffer some type of abuse really shook me. And then I got to thinking about our company. 45,000 employees, basically you could think of us as sort of the microcosm of society. Right. And the truth is, if it's happening outside, you know you've got employees that are being affected. And I just really asked myself, sitting there, what are we doing about it? Are we doing anything to help? And the answer was no.
Community partnerships that continue to grow. Every year we hear from people and organizations who support our campaign. The highest ranking domestic violence officer in Florida is among them. Vitally important to this effort is generating as much awareness as possible of the statewide domestic violence hotline. It serves as a lifeline to victims. We include it in every component of the campaign, and each year we develop a community outreach component for our employees and our viewers to take part in. The response to that has been tremendous. Over the years, we've collected basic supplies for the shelters, donated thousands of dollars in business clothes to the 3 largest DV centers, and which they sold at their secondhand stores. And last year, we collected more than 2,000 cell phones and accessories for Verizon's Hope Line program, which distributes the phones to local domestic violence shelters and programs. Have we made a difference in our community? Absolutely. There's been a 77% increase in calls to the statewide hotline as a result of our campaign. That increase happening specifically during the 6 weeks that our campaign is on the air. We've helped local centers raise more than $400,000, and the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence credits the campaign with saving lives. Local shelter directors and advocates use our campaign year-round in their community outreach, training sessions, and visits to local schools. On the ABC Action News DV webpage, they can access a comprehensive map of DV centers in our viewing area, compelling survivor stories, and every primetime special we've done so far. At the University of South Florida, they include our campaign in the Library of Resources at the Harrell Center for the Study of Family Violence. And this fall, our campaign goes directly into the hands of teenagers in the classroom. We've partnered with the Tampa Bay Times newspaper and education program to create a special educational edition on teen dating violence. It will be hand-delivered by the teachers to 150,000 students in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco. While the Emmy Awards and the recognitions by national, regional, and state journalism competitions are great, the best rewards come from everyday people here at home. They write us notes, they write us letters, send us emails, thanking us and telling us how the campaign has changed their life. We've received so many since that first special that we keep them in binders, organized by year. 3 years ago, we set out with a goal of doing our part to make our community better, make it stronger. And what we didn't realize was that our work would also help to save lives.
She will save many lives. She probably already has.